of General Motors stock for less than a gallon of gas. With the company trading at its lowest level since 1933, serious doubts have been raised about the company's viability. Joining me now live here in the studio at 30 Rock is Congressman Thaddeus McCotter of Michigan. He is the chairman of the House Republican Policy Committee, as well as being a member of the Financial Services Committee. It's a very busy time for you, and thank you for spending time with us.
Thanks for having me.
General Motors auditors say the company may need to seek bankruptcy protection. Do you really think that is on the horizon, realistically speaking?
No, we believe in Detroit that this is not an option. If they go into bankruptcy, they won't come out. This is why we put forward viability plans that are very painful for the restructuring of the auto industry to show why an expanded bridge loan is necessary. And I point out, Alex, that that means that even in a best-case scenario for Detroit and Michigan with 11.6% unemployment rate, we could be staring at 50,000 more people losing their jobs, more plant closings in a best-case scenario.
Okay, let's talk about the money that's been put into GM, sir, because it's lost $82 billion in the last 3 years, has received $13.4 billion in federal government monies and the loans. Should the government stop putting money into GM? How do you read that?
No, but also one of the ironies is, as you point out, money has gone into GM to keep those working families employed, to help make sure we have a manufacturing base. And they are restructuring. Again, those viability plans are not for corporate parties, they're not for hiatuses down in Hyannisport. What they are for is for the viability of that company to preserve the jobs that we can. Unions, corporations are working together to get to that goal. They are the only entity that has been asked to restructure to show that they justify continued use of taxpayer loans. We would hope that that model is applied to others, such as state governments, and to, of course, a lot of the banks.
Okay. You're busy, but you are spending time right now campaigning in order to save jobs. Part of why you're here talking to this nation, talking about the problem there in your community, which borders the city of Detroit. But you oppose the president's economic stimulus package, which is designed to save or create 3.5 million jobs by its description. Why?
Because it won't work in my district. None other than the Detroit Free Press agrees with that position, where it said the stimulus plan will do very little for the auto industry. In Michigan, if you do not help that auto industry, you are not going to help working families, and our cherished way of life will go away. So after $1 trillion, Alex, you still have the entire fate of the auto industry in the United States, Chrysler, GM, hanging out there. So how can you justify a bill that doesn't even properly incentivize car sales to stimulate demand? So if it's not going to help my district and it's going to do more harm than good in the long run, according to the CBO, how can I justify voting for $1 trillion expenditure?
So that's why you didn't do it, as opposed to the prospect of taking all of you that are in Congress and having almost a communal think, if you will, for the greater good of the masses?
As a member of the masses, I come from the 11th Congressional District, so I represent our masses. Okay,
got it. The liberal group Americans United for Change is launching a radio campaign this week, linking 5 House Republicans to Rush Limbaugh, and you're one of them. How do you feel about being linked to Rush Limbaugh?
Well, I'm more worried about how he feels being linked to a member of Congress, if you've seen our approval ratings. You know, I'm 43, so they said they're going to come after you for listening to Rush, and I said, why don't they like Geddy Lee? You know? Who doesn't like Canadian power rock trios?
Why do you think, though, you're being linked? What is it about you being linked to him?
Oh, I think because I'm a Republican. I mean, if you look at this, it's a tactic to divert away from the serious issues. And in all honesty, although they don't ask for my advice to the White House would be never stoop to deal with one radio show host, whether they like you or not. There are serious issues, as we know, and we've talked about in Michigan. There are serious issues in the country. Every waking moment should be spent on unemployment, on banking, and housing, and not worried about what one radio show host says.
How concerned are you that the criticisms via Rush Limbaugh that are being used in the GOP generally are going to stick?
Well, you can't really worry about that. Again, I have to worry about serving my district. Part of the reason that I'm out here is because of the way the auto industry is viewed in the rest of the country as opposed to what we understand it to be back home. And when you engage in a public life, you have to be prepared. The freedom of speech is a wonderful thing, but not everyone's going to like you. So if this is the worst thing that I get called between now and the end of this term, I'll consider it a blessed day.
Do you think there are some Republicans that should denounce Rush Limbaugh?
I don't think Republicans right now have the luxury of denouncing anyone unless they're completely a moral reprobate, and I don't think Mr. Limbaugh is. What we need to do is grow and expand the party, recognize that there are conservative voices running the range from Rush Limbaugh to the writings of T.S. Eliot and Edmund Burke. And so we need to grow the party and go forward. And what they're really seeing nationally, which is interesting, is while the focus is on trying to divide the Republican Party, you've seen Democratic senators come out against the president's $3.6 trillion budget. You saw Democrats vote with Republicans against the $1 trillion stimulus. So as the administration continues to operate in a fashion of spending money that would make Lyndon Johnson blush, you're starting to see blue dogs and others start to raise their own voices in conjunction with Republicans. So I would think that the real difference in the parties right now is not within the Republican Party who listens to what. It's what is the administration doing that's starting to drive blue dogs away from them? What is cap and tax going to do to the blue-collar, hard-hat jobs in the Ohio River Valley and places like Michigan that the administration's proposing? How do their representatives in the Democratic Party sit with that, and will they join with Republicans to help stop it?
Give me a sense of the temperature of the waters, if you will, if it was a river of bipartisanship. What's it like?
Well, it would clearly be nicer than the cesspool of partisanship we find ourselves in these days. I think it's possible. We've seen it in the past, and we've seen it. President Obama, in the stimulus, asked House Republicans for our ideas. We thought that that was a great gesture. We think that the gesture on the Financial Fiscal Summit was a great gesture. Unfortunately, the president's the executive branch, and as Chairman Rangel, a Democrat, has pointed out, there is a constitutional tension between the executive and legislative branches. Sometimes it's not just bipartisan in the House. You have to agree with the executive branch. So when the stimulus was done, Alex, we didn't blame the president for not putting our opinions in the bill or ideas that we had, because he doesn't write the bill. So I think that you'll see bipartisanship. I think we've made a start, and I think it will continue.
Okay, Representative Thaddeus McCotter there with Michigan. Thank you very much for joining us, and good luck getting out the job-saving message there in your district. We do appreciate your time.